Hi, this is Eric with Purita Fitness, and this is our insulin blood sugar seminar. Basically, we're going to talk to you about how insulin works, how your blood sugar affects you, and how that all ties in for how you're going to be able to lose fat when you understand the concepts of getting these things under control. This is probably one of the biggest rocks we have when it comes to people getting results, because most Americans right now, their insulin and blood sugar are out of whack. So what happens typically is we're going to see what your body does is I'm going to kind of blot this out here and we'll focus on the whiteboard. Is when I eat, a lot of our people start out, we eat like a processed bread, maybe a processed cereal, or we swing into Caribou or Starbucks in the morning. And when we eat that, our blood sugar does this. It rises up like going up on a roller coaster. And when we do that, we rise our body up in the roller coaster. What happens is that our body's going to release a bunch of insulin, because insulin's job is to take that sugar, that broken down carbohydrate from the bloodstream, and move it into the muscle cells. This is the muscle cells right here, this square right here. All right, so this is the insulin's job to do that. What happens over time if we're always doing this roller coaster thing, which most Americans are doing, we're eating a lot of processed carbs. They might not even be sugar. Things like pretzels, crackers, things that you can keep eating. Usually you're going to raise the blood sugar really fast. That's why you stay hungry, you never stay satisfied. We're eating a lot of these processed foods, and we're having a lot of sugar in our diets. And what we're doing is we're pumping out high amounts of insulin into the system. Insulin over time, it becomes overabundant in the system, and our body becomes desensitized to insulin. After a while, this muscle cell, which is this square, I know I'm not the best artist here, the doorways to this cell shut because the insulin receptors become dull. They become desensitized. Kind of like an alcoholic gets tolerant to alcohol. Our body just doesn't use insulin as effectively because it's overabundant. We're getting too much of it. So we decrease our insulin sensitivity and become insulin resistant. So now all that extra sugar that should be going in here, and if you kind of think of it this way, this thing's full. So as this sugar that should be going in here heads towards the muscle cell, and all these cell doors are shut, there's nowhere to put it, but it's going to store it out here in the warehouse. So now we start putting sugar down out here in this area, and this is your fat stores right here. So we start going into this, I call it the warehouse area. That's where you see a lot of the weight gain around the middle. And maybe for years and years you ate McDonald's, you ate fast food, not a problem, you were able to stay skinny, and all of a sudden something shifted. Well, what shifted was your body became insulin resistant. Your body just started to become desensitized to insulin. You had too much insulin going into your system, and you become the insulin resistant, which is the first step before type 2 diabetes. And then you put on weight, and the weight sticks to you like a sponge. So when you try to do cardio, you try to exercise, even when you try to eat right, what happens is you can't lose the weight, because hormonally you're programmed to store the fat. So what we got to do to fix that is there's two things that we want to talk about. We're going to talk about how we fix it from a nutritional standpoint, from an exercise standpoint. So I've got this sugar in my muscle cells, right? So if I never burn this off, if I never drain this tank, but I still continue to eat carbohydrates throughout the day, once again you're going to have a spillover effect. So let's say I go do a hard cardio workout, maybe a high intensity cardio or a strength circuit, and I burn up some of this stored carbohydrate glycogen in the muscle cells. Now I've created a deficit. And now there's room in this cup to be refilled. And I start to do that. That's why exercise is so important. So now when I bring carbohydrate back into the system, I have somewhere to put it besides out here in the warehouse. So in a sense, when we do our exercise, we're draining the tank, and now we're able to refill the tank. I always kind of look at fast food as a reserve tank. So if we just keep draining and refilling the main fuel tank and never fill up the reserve tank, we shouldn't be putting on body fat. So exercise is one way to do it, especially high intensity exercise, because that helps burn up more of that stored glycogen or stored carbohydrate in the muscle, so it creates that demand to replenish it, kind of like wringing out a wet sponge. The other thing we need to do is we got to quit eating so much carbohydrate and so much bad carbohydrate. Carbohydrate is not evil, but we just overconsume it as an American population. So by limiting our carbohydrate intake, and when I would take my carbohydrates would be more around early in the morning when I'm more insulin sensitive, and it would be around my workout times too. We call it the peri-workout times, a couple hours before up to a couple hours after. But even doing some lower carbohydrate days helps your body burn up some of this into the combination with exercise and creates a better insulin sensitivity environment, meaning that your body's able to take that carbohydrate once again, move it in here, and put it back in the cup. Problem is, like I said, the wrong type of carbohydrates. So what are the wrong type of carbohydrates? White carbohydrates. White sugar, white pasta, white bread, white noodles. Anything that's white is pretty much bleached. It doesn't have a lot of nutrient content. Breaks down really quick in the system. Even if it's white bread, it won't say sugar on the food label, but it'll actually break down just like table sugar. Snacky foods, pretzels, chips, those type of things. Obviously your sugar, your pop, your candy, all those type of things. Most breakfast cereals, a lot of breads, a lot of these things are heavily processed and they break down just like you would sugar. And here's the crux too, is sugar's not all bad either, because if I have sugar in apples, if you look at apples and you look at the label on apples, you have sugar, right? Pretzels don't have any sugar, but if you have a bowl of apples and a bowl of pretzels, which bowl is being refilled constantly throughout a party? At a party, if you have a bowl of apples and a bowl of pretzels, you don't see anybody camping out the apple bowl, just hammering away at the apples. It's the pretzels. So those type of foods, think about those type of foods where you keep eating, keep eating, keep eating. There's really not a lot of nutrition in them, but you just keep eating them because they never really seem to satisfy you. Those are typically your high glycemic foods. So we want to minimize those, but then we want to replace those with whole foods. So fresh fruits and vegetables. Fruits are going to be, your best fruits are going to be natural fruits, not juice. Juice, typically they take the pulp out and then it's just pure sugar. So I would go with your natural fruits, your natural vegetables, because a lot of these people will get vegetables and it's like the bird's eye ones where they have a lot of cream cheeses and things like that, have a lot of excess calories. So those are always going to be good. Grains, got to be really careful with grains, but I like the Ezekiel bread as a brand, or Udi's bread. Some of the sprouted grain breads, they don't have all the preservatives. You have to keep them in the fridge, but they don't have all the processed ingredients like a lot of the other breads. Whole grain pasta, oatmeal, not the instant stuff either. A lot of people will go with instant oatmeal, instant rice. Instant, they've altered it so it cooks quick, so therefore it breaks down quick. So once again, something's instant. It's going to hit your bloodstream like that roller coaster we talked about. And we want to make sure that we're not taking, we want things to break down slower, much like a time-release drug. The other thing you want to do with every meal and snack is make sure you're having protein. And protein is job, one of its jobs is to maintain muscle and repair muscle tissue. That's what we think its main job is. But the other big job it has, it actually stabilizes blood sugar. So having some protein in at every meal and snack is really important, because that'll help stabilize that blood sugar, so that blood sugar stays nice and low and doesn't rise up. So when I have protein on, my blood sugar is going to look more like this flat line here, and that creates a time release effect. I'm not going to overwhelm my system with a tidal wave of sugar or processed carbohydrate and then kind of in a sense overflow the cup so it spills over into the carbohydrates. So protein in every meal, whole foods for your carbohydrates. Eat your carbohydrates around your most active times or earlier in the morning. And then other things too is make sure fiber's in there. That fiber is going to help stabilize blood sugar, especially soluble fiber that mixes with water. And some good fats too. So good fats like nuts, avocados, olives, those type of things. Those are all really good things that you can put in your diet. If you're feeling like you're hungry all the time, the chances are that means your blood sugar's off. All right, so you have to get that under control. And that's where it's good to have in some of those low carb days. People talk about low carb diets where they stay low carb forever, but throwing in a few low carb days teaches your body. It creates a better insulin sensitivity, because once again, it'll actually lower the tank here, lower the amount of carbohydrate in your body, and it creates this demand of having to refill this all the time. If we never do some low carb days, we typically aren't going to, we're not going to lower the tank as much, and it's going to be harder to get that insulin sensitivity. So some low carb days, typically I like to do low carb days on days maybe I'm not doing a lot of intense strength work, maybe non-active days. But when we talk low carb, we say 50 grams or less of carb. The trick is with that when you do a low carb day, you want to make sure you don't lower your calories. So if you're cutting carbohydrates, you want to replace them with protein and healthy fats. So if I'm doing 2,000 calories of a normal day and I want to go low carb day, I need to make up for that. I need to do 2,000 calories on a low carb day. I'm just going to lower my carbohydrates and bring those other nutrients up. So I'm still taking in 2,000 calories. And you want to talk to your coach about that. So just to sum it all up, get your blood sugar under control. Avoid sugar, processed carbs. Switch in whole grains, fruits and vegetables. protein at every meal and snack, and I should probably mention protein about 20 to 30 grams at a meal if you're a woman, 30 to 40 if you're a guy. At a snack, 10 to 20 grams if you're a woman, 20 to 30 grams if you're a guy. We want enough protein to make a dent, and make sure you're doing that at every meal. And then also another piece I probably didn't mention is we want to make sure that we're eating frequently. That's another way to keep the blood sugar stable. So if I'm skipping breakfast and my blood sugar dives in the morning, guess what's going to be by lunch? My blood sugar is going to be down here. I'm going to be really, really hungry. I'm going to be more tempted to eat a high calorie, high glycemic meal. Same thing. My blood sugar is going along good here, and it's work about 3 o'clock at work, and I'm not hungry and I want to get my work done. I'm not going to stop and have my afternoon snack. Well, my blood sugar is going to start to dive, and by 6 o'clock when it's time for dinner, my blood sugar is down here, and I'm going to typically overeat at dinner because I haven't had that snack to kind of hold that blood sugar up too. So we don't want to let it dive, we don't want to let it spike, we want to keep it right down the middle. That's where we feel less hungry, we feel more mentally focused, and we don't feel like, we don't have the cravings, we don't feel like binge eating. So that's just some basic things on insulin resistance. Make sure you're paying attention to those things with your food diary. It's not just about calories, it's about getting your hormones right. Set your hormones up for fat burning. Bottom line, lower insulin levels equals better fat burning, and better insulin sensitivity means your body gets better at delivering nutrients into the muscle cells. You're going to recover better from your workouts, so we want to get that insulin working good and in balance. So this is Eric, Pure Vita Fitness. We'll see you next time.